War started between India and Pakistan. We're not going to be covering who's in the right, who's in the wrong, because at the end of the day, war is bad for everyone involved. So that combined with 10-year bonds losing their value very, very fast, those are main catalysts for gold and Bitcoin to rally as we're seeing it right now. Bitcoin got all the way to 97,800 during last night. Ethereum also had a huge rally. Solana, BNB, they did not perform as well as the others, but we're seeing increased volatility on these assets. And as I said, war and the US economy, those are catalysts with other indicators that we covered before that are showing us that indeed we have a huge probability of seeing these cryptocurrencies spike in the following months. With that, we also had between yesterday and today the Petra upgrade for Ethereum. If you remember, the last one was the merge where Ethereum became ultrasound money and fees were supposed to be way lower, a bunch of things that the merge was supposed to do. And now the Petra update is here to make Ethereum better. So we're going to cover everything regarding that in today's video. So before we start with the Petra update, let's take a look at the prices itself of our currencies. We have Bitcoin at $96,969, Ethereum is at $1,829, XRP at $213, BNB at $608, Solana at $147. We're not going to be covering here war news, nothing like that. This is not what the channel is about. Just know that these things do affect the market, they do affect gold, they do affect the S&P 500. The global economy is affected indirectly whenever there's a war. Like we saw now, we have 4 going on, which is Russia and Ukraine. We have Palestine and Israel. We also have the US, Israel attacking Yemen. And now we do have this India and Pakistan thing. There's also the everlasting Sudan war going, but these things do affect the market. So you have to keep that in consideration before you do anything. So that being said, before we jump into the Petra update, if we look at a copy trading, we are at 0.69 for the month of May. So we had a little bit of a drawdown during the weekend, and last 24 hours we made 0.34%. I also had a little bit of a loss last night. In my spreads that we covered before, I showed you that I was selling just puts, but because yesterday morning we had a huge dip in Ethereum's price, I thought that we were going to keep going down, so I sold a call instead, and a very safe call. We actually sold an 1825 put and we bought an 1875 put, so a bearish vertical spread. We wanted Ethereum to stay below that, but then Ethereum all of a sudden, because all these factors that we mentioned, it started going up and we lost a little bit. We didn't lose the whole margin, which is never going to happen with these spreads because the spreads limit the loss, but we did lose 3%, so we were almost in a 1% profit. Now we are 2.3% in the loss, so I have to keep that going. But spreads are way safer than just selling options. If I was just selling the 1825 call, that one would have been a huge loss for my wallet. Instead of 3%, we could have lost 30% because it will be just a naked call, so that would be very, very scary. But I believe with that, with 2 or 3 days with profits, we should be able to overcome that loss. I even opened one today. We went back to selling put spreads, and today I think the ROI was 0.46%. So if you keep 3-4 days like this, we should be able to recover very, very fast. That being said, the 0DT is doing fantastic, so I'm going to keep you updating on these and my personal one as we go. But now let's cover the Petra network upgrade. The Ethereum organization posted that, and the final part of the update happened on May 7th, so today at 10 a.m. UTC, so 7 a.m. my time and 6 a.m. Eastern if you are American. So the major things that happen is now that we have more UX features for smart account wallets. We have validator UX improvement, and we also have L2 scaling. The blobs that were introduced in the merge, now they increased by 2 and they are faster. And another thing is that now the staking limit went from 32 ETH to 2048 ETH. So validators, stakers can deposit way more ETH. Instead of having different and multiple accounts, they can stake larger sums of Ethereum than they would before. Of course, these are the major ones, but we have things for account abstraction, things that are trying to bring Web3 closer to a Web2 usability. So you won't even feel when you're switching to Web2 to Web3. You're not going to have to always confirm on wallets, all these sorts of things. No, it will be seamless. This is what Ethereum is trying to do. And eventually it will scale up to L2s and eventually to other networks as a whole, not only layer 2s, but to L1s as well, like Solana, like the Bitcoin network, Cardano, Ripple, whatever. These networks are trying to accomplish the same thing, which is to be very, very seamless for users to be in Web3, just like they are in on Web 2 and they don't even know they switched from one to the other. So this independent, if you are an Ethereum maxi, Bitcoin maxi, Avalanche maxi, I don't even know if these guys are here anymore. The goal to be accomplished here is the same. We want Web3 to be seamless and to have a very similar experience like the one that we have on Web 2. So this not necessarily means that Ethereum will scale up in price like 2x in the next days. No, not necessarily, because if you remember, the merge didn't cause any huge movement. It actually fell down a little bit prior and after the merge itself. So the pricing itself of Ethereum wasn't much affected by that. But that being said, who knows? Once the L2 implementations start to take place, maybe more volume will come into Ethereum. As I said before, I stay as far away as Ethereum mainnet as I can. I love L2s and other L1s, but for Bitcoin and Ethereum, these two networks, they're very expensive, especially for people with small amounts of money. So if you want to move 100, 200, 300 bucks in Ethereum or in the Lightning Network, that one is going to be a pain because you're going to be stuck with a lot of fees. So hopefully we get to see a day where Ethereum mainnet is very, very cheap if you compare that to Solana or L2s. But L2s are here to take that expensiveness from Ethereum. So I'm not sure Ethereum will ever see that day, but maybe these L2s will keep getting cheaper and cheaper, like we see with Arbitrum, with Optimism, and Polygon. Now, let's take a look at the charts right now before we close the video. You can see that in the 4-hour, we do see Ethereum recovering quite a while from 1770, 1760 more or less, all the way up to the 1845. So we don't know. We need to see a confirmation. We need to see a bounce here on this moving average, the yellow moving average right here. So if we bounce here, we most likely should be seeing an upwards movement for Ethereum. Now, switching to Bitcoin, we see that we're still not oversold. So we could still see some movement on the upside, and we can confirm that, but we need to see more volume. You see, we're lacking here in volume. We don't see these huge candles, this huge movement right here, repeating itself right here. So unless we see a huge catalyst here, we could see another stagnation like we saw right here. This will be just another bounce and then we hold. But holding above the $97,000 is very important for us because this marks a preparation for, so to say, for another leg up. And then for Solana, unfortunately, the movement doesn't have any foundations here to show us that it's gonna just skyrocket. We have the RSI smack in the middle at 50, volume still very, very low. Even if you compare to yesterday, very, very low volume here for Solana. The only good thing for us is that we are trending above and we bounced above these moving averages. So this is the 100 and this is the 200, and you can see that they are holding pretty well. They held Solana before right here and now right here. So most likely we're going to keep bouncing in this range before we move up again, but we do not have any sign of crashing down. And again, if that happens, if we crash down below the 40s, 130 is always a safe spot for Solana. So keep an eye on Solana. We are very, very sideways. Still, we don't see any huge signal that shows us directions here. So Solana kind of slow these past days, but keep an eye on Ethereum. We could be testing the 1820s again. For Bitcoin, we need to see more volume for us to wait another leg, and this leg could be 98,300, 98,500 at most, but then we should slow down and wait for another confirmation. This week, we also have Fed meeting. So the Fed meeting could bring more volatility, but again, usually this volatility is all over the place. We have huge ups and downs. So this, for the long run, doesn't even matter. We need to see what the Fed will say regarding cuts or raises. We don't know. We just know that now nothing is going to happen, but they have projections for the future, and we would like to hear that's what they have to say regarding the American economy. So this is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you so much for watching so far. Last video got a little bit of attention, so that was very, very good. That a lot of eyes were looking on spreads. So we see a lot of interest in spreads. We hopefully are able to make something very, very good for you to utilize. And again, I'll see you guys on Friday. So take care, and I'll see you then. Peace.